Hi friends, welcome back to Chennai Tech Point. Today's session we are going to see some of the Spring interview questions and answers. First one, what is a Spring framework? It's an open source Java application development framework which supports to building all the type of Java applications like web application, database driven application and enterprise applications etc. What are the features of the Spring framework? Spring framework is a lightweight. Spring jars are smaller in size of 10 MB. Those does not need a heavy wide application servers to deploy the project. Non-invasive, no need to extend and implement the predefined classes. Loosely coupled, dependency injection and AOP helps to create the loosely coupled code. Spring container, it take care of the object creation, initialization and managing the entire object lifecycle. IOC, it allows to creation of objects that will be managed by the Spring container and its dependencies too will be resolved automatically. AOP, aspect oriented programming, promoted separate of concerns such as logging, transactions and security from the business logics. What are the modules of this Spring framework? These are the 5 modules. First one, test, Spring core container, AOP, data access and integration, web. Below you can see the diagram representing the all 5 modules. Test module. This layer provides the support of testing with JUnit and TestNG. Spring core container. The Spring core container contains the core, beans, context and expression language modules. Core and beans. Those modules provide IOC and dependency injection features. Context module. This module supports the I18N, EJB, JMS basic remoting. Expression language. It is an extension to the EL defined in the JSP. The expression language provides support to setting and getting the properties values, method invocation, accessing, collections and indexes, named variables and logical arithmetic operations. It will use the expression language. AOP. Those modules support the aspect-oriented implementation. Data access and integration. These modules uses the JDBC, ORM, OXM, JMS and transaction modules. Those modules basically provide a support to integrate with the database. It will integrate the database in database access layer. Web module. These modules provide the support to creating the web applications. Next one, what is a Spring MVC? The Spring Web MVC framework provide model, view and controller architecture to deploy the flexible and loosely coupled web applications. The model is nothing but application data, plain POJO classes. View, HTML page seen by the end user. Basically we will call it as a presentation layer. Controller, responsible for processing the user request and building model and passes it to the view to the end user. What is a dispatcher servlet and front controller? It is a front controller that handles all the incoming HTTP requests and send back to the response to the client. Below you can see the diagram. End user send the request. First it will stopped by the dispatcher servlet. Again dispatcher servlet pass the request to the handler mapping. Handler mapping send the response back to the dispatcher servlet in the form of handler execution code. Dispatcher servlet find the appropriate controller, pass the handler execution code to the appropriate controller. Controller return back the model and view to the dispatcher servlet. Again the dispatcher send the model and view data to the view resolver. What view reservoir will do? It will separate the model and view, again send back to the dispatcher servlet. Finally, view separate the view and again send the view to the representation to the dispatcher servlet. Finally, dispatcher servlet show the response to the end user in browser. This is the MVC flow. Next one, what is a Spring IOC container? The Spring IOC container, IOC means inversion of control, is at the core of the Spring framework. It's create the object and initializing the object and manage the entire life cycle of the objects. The advantage of the Spring IOC container is developers can concentrate on the business logic, since the object creation and managing are handled by the IOC container. Everything will take care by the IOC container. Types of containers in Spring. These are the two types of container. First one, bean factory. Second one, application context. Bean factory. Bean factory is like a factory class that contain the collection of beans. Application context interface built on top of the bean factory interface. Application context having the bean factory features, apart from it will provide the extra functionality on top of the bean factory. Next one, how to create application context in project. These are the ways to create the application context in project. First one, class path XML application context. This is for standalone Java application using XML based configuration. Next one, file system XML application context. Similar to the class path XML application context, except the XML configuration loaded from the system. Next one, annotation config application context. This is standalone Java application using annotation based configuration. Annotation config web application context and XML web application context are web applications. Next one, how many bean scopes are supported in Spring? These are the bean scopes. First one, singleton. Singleton means it will having the only one instance. Whenever the user send the request, it will use the same instance. Second one, prototype. A new instance will be created every time whenever the bean requested from the Spring container. It will create the new instance for every request. Third one, request. This is same as the prototypes, but the new instance is created for each HTTP request. Fourth one, session. A new bean will be created for each HTTP session called by the Spring container. Fifth one, global session. This is used to create the global session beans for the particular applications. Next one, what are the Spring bean life cycle? This is the bean life cycle. First, the Spring beans are created in container. Next step, dependencies are injected. After injecting the dependencies, init method is called to initialize the bean. After that, bean is ready to use and do the operations. Finally, container shut down the bean. Next one, what is a Spring configuration file and how many ways to create the configuration file? A Spring configuration file is used to define all the beans that will be initialized by the Spring context. Once the context is initialized, we can use it to get the different bean instances. We can configure the Spring beans through the below ways. One is a XML based configuration. Second one, Java based configuration. Third one, annotation based configuration. XML configuration, we are using XML files. Java based configuration, we are using yet configuration. Annotation based configuration, generally we are using yet component, yet service, yet repository and yet controller. Next one, what do you mean by dependency injection? Dependency injection is a process of passing or injecting dependencies object into dependent object. For example, class bus and class engine. Bus is a dependent object, engine is a dependency class. Types of dependency injections are constructor injection, setter injection, field injection. These are the three types of dependency injection in Spring. Next one, difference between setter and constructor injection. In constructor injection, there is no partial injection, whereas setter injections can be partial injection. In constructor injection, it does not override the setter property. In setter injection, it will override the constructor property. In constructor injection, it will create a new instance if any modification done in application. Whereas setter injection will not create a new instance if any modification is done. In constructor injection, it will work better for many properties, whereas setter injection is better for few properties. Thank you for watching. For more updates, please subscribe my channel.